Hey.
In the aisle. Can I see the ushers? Can we have the microphones? Can you bring them forward to the side? And we will queue behind the microphone. And I'm going to give the first 10 questions to our students because it is all about the youth. And I would like to call Hakeem Enyansi, who is our SRC president. He will have the privilege of asking the first question. So whilst our students get ready, Your Excellency, one of our deans has a question. Your Excellency, are you ready for us? So Dr. Abbasam, one of our would want to ask a question. Whilst we have our students get ready. So, Doc, if you can please.
Thank you very much. Excellency, I've followed with keen interest your presentation and many others that you've done in other areas throughout your talk. And one issue that actually seems to be a burden on my shoulders, and probably that of the country, is the problem of uncompleted government projects. During President Kufuor's time, he started many which he couldn't complete. During your time and the late professor's time, you also left some when you were leaving office. The current administration is also having some to deal with. Basically, what are your plans with regards to uncompleted projects in Ghana? Because it seems to me that the areas you are tackling, educational sector and so on and so forth, many projects have been done which are still lying idle. But we took loans as a nation to start them. But the ones you are promising, can we pause as a nation for even just a year to go back to all the viable projects and see what we can do with them before we can start new ones in the same areas. Your commander sugar factory is lying idle. Loan from Indian government is lying idle. What do we do? The final one is when you assume office, will you look at the uncompleted National Cathedral? Thank you.
So I will also ask Dr. Elias, member of the business school, to ask his question, and then I'll take a third question from the dean of our business school, and then you can answer that, and then afterwards we can start with our students. And please, let's keep our questions brief. Thank you.
You have answered most of the questions. This one left. Education. We train people, we give them allowances, and we give them scholarships. Some of these scholarships, very huge sums, especially those who travel abroad. In the training, sometimes we give hypocritical undertaking or bonds which nobody follows. You pay allowances to them, hard-earned state funds, nothing is done, they are flying out of the country. Nothing is done to bond them. Some take government scholarships, hard-earned public sector funds. They finish their programs, they are still outside, nothing is done to recoup our money. These leakages in the public sector, how can this be addressed? Maybe let me add the second one. Misguided public policies of implementation of certain misguided public policies. Some of them, I think, they are unwinding. You just mentioned so many deficiencies or things that need to be covered in the education sector. But we see expenditures, for example, distributing tablets to students now, which actually speaks highly, because there are other things that need to be done. Another misguided expenditure is what I see as the National Cathedral. You see, those who link this National Cathedral to the biblical David, when you read the Bible, David, after he became successful and victorious and defeated all his enemies.
Thank you very much, Doc. I think your question is a bit lengthy, so respectfully, if we can wrap up here.
Let me just end it.
Yes.
When David defeated them, and he was satisfied, that is when he said, let me pay for the Lord. Have we defeated our enemies of inflation, exchange rate, and others? I end my question.
Thank you. So we'll have the third question from Doc.
Your Excellency, thank you for your brilliant speech and also your vision for this country. I have two questions. One is about, I didn't hear anything about help. We have a situation where we hear most of our nurses and doctors are running out of this country. What is your plan so that our nurses and doctors, when that we train, can remain in this country? Number two, I want to hear something about the dirty environment in which we find ourselves. All the sachet water, the plastics that we see around, it makes our city really a shame. If you visit other countries and cities, thank you.
Thank you. I think His Excellency can now answer these questions because we've had 4 questions already. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Actually, my presentation focused on the areas you asked me to come and talk about. It was about our policy for education and employment for young people. And so that's what I covered. And so I didn't do sanitation, I didn't do healthcare. But I'll take those questions anyway. I think I can answer them. So let's begin with uncompleted projects. My view is that it's a shame that we abandon projects because the credit will be given to our predecessors. Our Constitution in the Directive Principles of State Policy says that succeeding governments shall continue the projects begun by preceding governments. It's there in black and white, it's in the Constitution. And so, even though it's not coded in our law, it is in our Directive Principles of State Policy. And so we have an obligation to continue projects that were started by the previous government. And I know that from Jerry Rawlings' time, projects that were started by Rawlings were continued by Kufuor. In Professor Mills's time, projects that were started by Kufuor were continued by Professor Mills. All the Get Fund projects that were awarded to contractors under Kufuor, Get Fund continued to pay and certify certificates and pay them for the work done. The only exception with President Kufuor's administration and ours was that they started a gang of 6 road projects. If you remember, we called some road projects the gang of 6. And even though they initiated the projects, there was no dedicated funding to continue them. But what did we do? Professor Mills made us do budgetary allocation for each of those projects. One is the Tejakwashi to Adenta road that we now pass on without remembering what it was like. Another is the road from Achimota Brewery all the way through to John Tay School. There were 6 of them. One was the Swami Interchange. And I can assure you that when we came into office, we continued and completed all of them. When NDC came into office, the Swami Interchange was only 32% complete. By the time we left office, it was almost 90% complete. All that was left was the extension to a Boapa formulation, which this government is continuing. There was also the affordable housing project that was started. And what we did was, because government did not have the money to complete the project, we handed over the flats to SHC, State Housing Company, and to SNET. And because of that policy of handing it over to SNET, Boteman is completed and is occupied. We also gave them the Kumasi affordable housing to complete, but I think SNET ran out of funds or something. But I stated clearly that when I come into office, we're going to do an inventory of all those abandoned and uncompleted projects. And in every year's budget, we're going to make budgetary allocation for completing them. And like I said, we're not going to be in a hurry to start new projects when we have all these uncompleted projects that have been abandoned. I mean, for instance, take the Agenda 111 hospitals. I said that it would have been more prudent to start, say, 40 of them and finish them. And then you can continue another 20 and finish them and continue. But you start 88 hospitals at once, all over the country. And recently, the Agenda 111 Secretariat said they can only finish 20 before they leave office. So it means that 68 hospitals are going to be left to President Mahama to come and complete. And so, we must also look at the prudence of how we start projects in terms of completion. And I think that that's something we would look at. So we'll be in a hurry to start new projects. The little money we have, we will make budgetary allocation in every year's budget to continue and finish those projects. There's a particular problem with the projects in the education sector. You go to many secondary schools, they are half completed dining halls, half completed dormitory blocks, half completed classroom blocks, laboratories and everything. These were projects that were awarded by the GET Fund. This government has collateralized 60% of the income of the GET Fund in what they call the Dachi bond. And they have taken that money up front. And so now, with the GET Fund levy that we pay, only 40% of the revenue is available to GET Fund to continue these projects. And that is the hindrance that has stalled most of the projects in the secondary schools. And that's why children don't have dormitories to sleep in, they don't have classrooms to study in. And so I made a statement and I said that the Dachi bond should be added to the debt restructuring so that it can free up, and we should add it to the public debt so that it can free up the flows of the GET Fund to continue and finish all the projects that the GET Fund has awarded in all the various schools that we have around. And so we'll prioritize the completion of ongoing and abandoned projects rather than starting new projects. National Cathedral, I've spoken about this before. For me, the National Cathedral was a covenant somebody made with God, an individual. He said he swore to God that if he became president, he would build a cathedral for him. And so, from my perspective, it is his promise to build a house for God. And I don't know if God asked him for a house, you know. I'm sure that if he really had asked God what God would want him to do with $400 million, I don't think God would have chosen a cathedral. I don't think God would have chosen a cathedral when $400 million could have provided textbooks for all our students in school. I don't think God would have chosen a cathedral when He could have provided hostels in our universities for our students to have a place to stay. I don't think God would have asked you to build him a cathedral when we could have used that money to dualize the road from here to Cape Coast and prevent accidents. People die every day on that road because it's a single lane road. And so God didn't ask for it, somebody promised it to God. And so if a correction. I meant Sofo Line Interchange, not Swami Interchange. I was told I said Swami Interchange. I meant Sofo Line Interchange. Thanks for the correction. And so it was a personal promise. And if I have 400 million, God will be angry with me if I use it to build that cathedral. So I'm not going to take taxpayers 400 million or borrow 400 million from any source to build that cathedral. I said that if us as Christians believe that we should have that cathedral, then it's our duty to raise that money from our own pockets or from other Christian organizations that can help us to build that cathedral. But I don't believe that we should use any taxpayers' money or borrow money and add to our public debt to build that cathedral. We're not Christians alone in this country. They are Muslims, they are Buddhists, they are African traditional religionists. And all of them contribute to taxes. And so I don't think that one religion, we as Christians, should take taxpayers' money that is paid by Muslims and Buddhists and African traditional religions and build a cathedral for ourselves. The Muslims built their national mosque. And as far as I know, not one cedi of the government of Ghana taxpayers' money went into the mosque. And so when we come, we'll do consultation with Ghanaians or even with the Christian community, what we want to do with regards to a cathedral. If it's a priority, then we must go look for the money and build it. But I'm not, as president, going to use any public funds to build a cathedral. The basic principle that underlies scholarships is that one, the course the student is going to do is not available in Ghana, or it is a priority course where we do not have enough capacity to train students. And so those are the principles that we look at. I mean, if you want to do an MBA, there are so many schools doing MBA in Ghana today. Why should somebody go abroad to go and do an MBA and be paid for by Ghanaian taxpayers' money? If you want to go and do a Harvard MBA, for heaven's sake, pay for it yourself. And so we must stick by the rules and regulations for which scholarships are awarded. For instance, in our time, we gave a lot of scholarships to go to Scotland. Many Ghanaian students went to Scotland because we had started the beginning of oil production, and we did not have enough expertise in oil production. And so in the 4 years that I was in office, actually in the 8 years from Professor Mills's time, we skewed a lot of the scholarships to students who were going to learn petroleum sector, oil management, accounting, oil sector law, and so on and so forth. And there are many students who got those scholarships and are back here in Ghana and working. And so we must draw the lines. We must have a minister like Nana who will make sure that the scholarships we are being given are for scholarships that are relevant to the human resource development of this country. And again, the scholarships must go to underprivileged people, young people who come from backgrounds that do not have the capacity to sponsor them. And so again, the social construct of the person's origin should be taken before a scholarship is given. I mean, there are many of us who can afford to pay the fees of our children if we decide that we go to university abroad. And so we have no business going to the scholarship secretariat and asking for scholarships for our children. And so we will have a person superintending the scholarship secretariat that will make sure that the guidelines are implemented and that those getting the scholarships are deserving of those scholarships. Misguided policies. Yes, and he mentioned one. You bring a new curriculum, the children have no textbooks in basic school for the last 4 years, and you think that giving pre-tertiary students laptops, tablets, is more important. Of course, everybody knows the political experience. The pre-tertiary students are going to register in May because some of them will be coming 18 years and above, some are 18 already, and they're going to be the ones voting. So this is a gift to entice them to vote for the current government. Otherwise, if you're using 1.3 billion cedis to give pre-tertiary students laptop, our priority would have been different. There are other things begging for funding in our educational system than those laptops. But it's a bribe for them to vote for this government. But, I mean, the children do not exist in isolation. They live in households and families. Some of them's parents are those who are working in the banking sector that cruelly closed 9 indigenous banks and threw them all out onto the streets. Bankers have become Uber drivers. Those are the same people whose children are in pre-tertiary education. So you think if you give a child a tablet, the child will vote for you after what you have done to their parents? Most of those children go home and their parents struggle to put a meal on the table for them because of your poor mismanagement of this economy. And you think that just giving the child a tablet is enough to buy their conscience to vote for you? I don't think so. The children should take the tablets, but you should remember that we cannot stand another 4 years of this poor driver Banza and his driver's mate. And then he spoke about health professionals. NDC believes in opening the capacity for training of health professionals. And we believe in providing opportunities for them to work. And that's why we're building the community-based secondary school so that we could employ more teachers. And that's why we're building hospitals so that we can employ more nurses and more health professionals. Let us produce enough to feed ourselves, but also to export. If you listen to me, I said there's nothing wrong with migration of health workers. Indeed, when we come into office, we will sign contracts with countries. Philippines have done it. Philippines have signed contracts with countries in the Middle East and other places in Europe, and they export their nurses and caregivers to those countries on fixed-term contracts. So you get a 5-year contract to go and work in a country. A small percentage of your income is remitted back to the country, but you also gain experience, and after 5 years when you come back, you have more experience than you would have been probably if you were working at home. And while you are there, you will be remitting money back home to your parents. And that is a very huge source of foreign currency. As I speak to you today, Philippines gets $30 billion from its professionals working abroad. These are doctors, these are nurses, these are healthcare professionals, these are engineers, seamen. Philippines has the most seamen on all the ships in this world. And all of them are earning money and sending it back. We have the Maritime University here. Why don't we open it up and train more Ghanaian youth as seamen and put them on ships to work? And so, as part of our employment ministry's obligation to deal with labor affairs and also to deal with employment matters, they will also have a desk where we sign agreements with other countries that need professionals to come and work. And we will send our professionals there to go and work, gain experience, gain money, and come back home. Sanitation. We will close down the Ministry of Sanitation. One, to reduce expenditure. And two, I don't see any use. Accra, our country is dirtier than when there was no Ministry of Sanitation. Indeed, this country was cleaner when sanitation was under local government than as a standalone ministry. And so we'll close down that ministry and we'll take the sanitation schedule back to local government. Indeed, because we want to reduce government expenditure, is not only the sanitation ministry, in transport, aviation and railways, we're going to close them down and send them back to the transport ministry. We're going to combine communications and information again. And so we want to reduce the number of ministries. And so with cleanliness, we think that it is a duty of the district assemblies. Every assembly has an obligation to make sure that its district is clean. And so we must decentralize sanitation to the district level. And it must be a criteria of performance for the district chief executive. That they will come to your district and your district is dirty. That is one of the performance indicators. And so when we're going to change district chief executive, if you have a dirty district, we will remove you and bring somebody who can make sure that the district is clean. Our problem as a nation is we're not holding people accountable. The district chief executive is giving allowances, is giving a house, is giving a car, and the district is his responsibility. And so he must make sure, if he goes around his district and there's a dirty place, he must make sure that it is clean. But because we don't hold them accountable, everybody just gets away with murder. So it will be a performance criteria. We'll send an independent team around to the districts and they will mark you. If your district is dirty, they will give you a negative mark. And when it comes to reshuffling the district chief executive, you will be shown your performance. This is what you did. Your district was dirty. You did not provide social services. You built only one primary school. We wanted to build 2 primary schools. You built only one. You have a performance criteria on which you will be judged. It will be scientific. You won't assume that somebody has victimized you because you see that you yourself did not perform. And when you are going to the district, we'll tell you what we want to see. And if you don't meet it, we will remove you and bring somebody who can do it. And so that's it.
Thank you very much. So we're going to take another set of 4, but I see there is a lecturer at the mic. The next 3 must be students. If you're not a student of this university and you are in the next 4, I'm sorry, I will not take your question. So after my colleague, faculty.
Mumble, anointing one shop, what university? And now university, and now poly, and now maybe Biela will Biela. Blah, anointing one shop. So we are blunt here. Now what's so? Now when you school, that's always can be the hole. And now we are Benjamin Pom time. Blah, anointing one shop, then found was some the 2 are prices. Now it's what post them and conference when you can at their child school fees. When you can cry, and then be an old child, mammy, and now papa, and try by you, and child be I had night to football to make fun until one shop, mamma. One will yet Juma and Lanty and Mabawa. I'm a number bench, and then a bench to be moved. You walk top and down. Your t-shirt, your shirt, your boxer, your singlet, your joggers, your jeans. You can't jeans, your jeans. I never can have by intimate. The work 20 shop for more. Hey, Papa Chafam now, work 20 shop for more, a phone. Why, I got in your mom. And your mother for any back. And it's only 1,000 cities, 2,500. You may not be a bra, Mabuau. Any baby, you will to a flower station. Who do a flower station? Because I saw here anointing one shop. Okala open your bachelor. Name so here to find here for a number 0243 63 3885.
Etufua muba ebe ya mukama oba so hwe ma mi nyansa ya wo bag ya wo to say ya wo nyema bebre bitimi bi body ya wo nyema bebre ampa boa edey investing for haya no mu nyina be fa nyama ton edi yo mu business
Miss Maria school am funu mai epe ntade da ya ade ba no tin ana me ede me ba no na mu se nyama ede da fam so on man am funu discuss akra ede share mu am funu ede da start me business akra and ti do pe bia me ko be bia on bra no to an